what in God's name is going on with Gavin Newsom? The country is trying to figure out how he went from progressive hero and governor of the most liberal state in the country to interviewing and spending time with MAGA favorites like Steve Bannon and Charlie Kirk on his new podcast. He's really completely changed his tune on some of the most hot button issues for Democrats. Let's talk about the word Latinx. Just 2 weeks ago, here's what he said about it.
The Latinx stuff that, by the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
Where did that even
No
go?
more Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about?
But there was a person who used Latinx. It was actually a really important person. It was him.
I hope we can really paint a picture in terms of our consciousness of how impactful this has been on the Latinx community. The Latinx and black communities. You've got politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx.
He also used it a lot on social media. Look at a few of these right here. That is a lot of use of Latinx by him for somebody who said that nobody in his office has ever used that phrase.
He's also rewriting history a bit on his stance on transgender issues, which he had a point of view on his podcast, again, just 2 weeks ago. Here's where he is now.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that. It turns out in 2014, years before I was governor, there was a law established the legal principles that allow trans athletes in women's sports.
In that statement, he's kind of making it sound like he wasn't involved in this at all. He's like, oh, it was in 2014, years before I was governor. Like, you mean when you were the lieutenant governor? And one of the videos that we found was actually him praising not just the governor at the time, Jerry Brown, but the California state legislature for putting that in place at the time. Take a listen to this.
Thank you for what you did on civil rights for students in our schools, transgender rights in this state.
While the left might be confused about what Gavin Newsom is doing, to those of us with brains, it isn't so hard to figure out. Gavin Newsom wants to win the presidency in 2028, so it's time for a rebrand.
Why does it take so many months or days to count the ballots in California?
Legit.
A month.
Legit.
India, 1 day to count 640 million votes. Germany, 8 hours to count 50 million votes.
Yep.
Argentina, 6 hours to count 27 million votes. California, 4 weeks to count 16 million votes.
It's ridiculous.
Why?
It's ridiculous.
At least give credit to Gavin for realizing the left has surrounded themselves with political poison as he attempts to distance himself from all of it as quickly as possible. So when AOC, Jasmine Crockett, and other nutcases get into the race, he can present himself as the moderate candidate who can return the country back to the old guard. By mingling with right-wing characters, he's presenting that he's open-minded, willing to talk to the other side and compromise. AKA, he's the moderate candidate. But the leftists here do not like that and will inevitably be joining AOC on her Bernie Sanders revenge run to the presidency. We're years from the next presidential election, and the battle lines are already getting drawn.